Hi guys, it's Elizabeth and I'm over here in my art loft. I had a couple of friends that suggested that I might want to do a beginning tutorial for the gel plate, so that's what I'm here to do today. So I'm pretending I went to the store, which I haven't been to the store for ages now, but I went to the store and I bought a brand new gel plate. And it comes in a package like this, and it's very noisy to open. And they suggest that you keep the package and put it back into the package. I don't do that with my gel plate, and I don't think it's necessary, but you could do that. Your gel plate will come with two plastics, one on the top and one on the bottom. So what I suggest is that you go to and I believe you can get them at the hardware store. Mine's not a brand new one, as you can see, but get a piece of plexiglass. And you probably can have them cut it for you at the hardware store. But if you can't, then you can get a plexiglass cutter, and that's a whole new, different tutorial. But anyway, you'll be taking your gel plate, and you'll take off one of the pieces of plastic, and then you're going to put it down on your piece of plexiglass. Now, when you do this, it's important, I think, to get the bubbles out from under it. I'm going to take this top plastic off so we can see the bubbles. And you can see how the bubbles are there? They are a different color than the other things. So you can see that there are bubbles in these different places. Now, how do you get the bubbles out? Well, the way to do it is to peel up just half of your plate, and as you're putting it down, you kind of hold it back on itself and let it roll down there, and it will roll down without, come on baby, without too many bubbles. Another way, if you get some more bubbles in it, you can sometimes pat them out to the edge. But if you can't, you can do one corner at a time where you pull up just the corner and then help it go down evenly onto your plate, onto your plexiglass. You can see there's a bubble there, so we'll do that one. We'll roll it up to this one. Then we'll help kind of walk it down with our fingers. And yes, this gel plate actually has been used. It does have some paint on it. Again, there's one there. Just kind of walk it down with your fingers. One there. This is a 5x8 gel plate. Actually, there's one all the way there, so we'll go back to that far. They come in all different sizes. You think you can get a 4x4, you can get a little round one, you can get the 5x8. I started with the 5x8, and my sister came and visited, and we did some gel printing, and it was fun, but I was like, I don't know. Don't think I'll use these things. But then I watched some more YouTube videos. There are lots of people that do really good videos on how to use your gel. Well, not necessarily how to use it, but on the results that you can get. And they're all as many people as do gel plates. That's that many different kinds of people, or different kinds of things that you can do with them. Excuse me. Now, once you have it here, the other thing that you'll need is some paint. And the paint that you use, you can use cheap, sorry, not cheap, inexpensive, like Delta Ceramcoat. Excuse me, I got a frog in my throat here. You can get, I suggest that you get black and white Liquitex, not white, but something off-white, like champagne or something like that, but black and an off-white of the Liquitex Basics. Those are very handy for cleaning up your plate, and we'll talk about that in a moment. You can use more expensive paints, but they aren't necessarily any better than the ones, the little inexpensive ones, because when you're doing the gel plate, it doesn't seem to matter if there's a lot of pigment in your paint. Now, when you're painting, it makes a difference, but when you're doing the gel plate, it doesn't matter that much because you're rolling out a thin layer, kind of like a glaze, if you think of it that way. and then you're picking it up with a piece of paper. And usually you're going to roll out more than one, more than one layer. And how are you going to roll that out? Well, you will need a brayer. Now these are all speedball brayers that I had used for other purposes, and you can see they come in a multitude of sizes. So depending on the type of, or the size of your plate, you can decide on which brayer to get. If you have this plate, I would suggest one of these two for the 5x8, and you can see it doesn't go all the way across, doesn't need to. But if you're getting one that's like a 12x14 plate, then I would suggest the larger brayer. And I do have a 12x14 plate, so I do use the larger brayer on it. I also use it on the small one sometimes, but this small plate seems to have a little bit of curvature, a dip kind of thing in it. And it makes it difficult when I'm trying to roll out the paint with this. Then I have to kind of press a little extra hard to get it to go down on the sides. The other thing that you'll need, you can use gloves. I personally don't mind having acrylic paint on me. I don't think that's that bad. Oil paint's really bad for you, but acrylic paint I don't think it's as bad. Depends on which ones you're using, because there are paints that have things that could be carcinogenic. So read your paint bottle if you're interested in that, if you're concerned about that. Most of the paints that are hobby paints are not made with those chemicals, as far as I know. But that's one of the cautions. The other thing that you'll really want to have is an apron, and I have an apron that I have used for 20 years. And I do wash it occasionally, but it's still got plenty of paint on it, and I mean, it's totally used. Okay, so what do we do first? Well, we get our paint out, and if you're using the inexpensive Delta Ceramcoat, we'll use this lovely dark goldenrod. And you can see it's already been used before. Just grab that and take that off of there. But you're going to put a little bit of paint. And how much paint do you put? Well, for a 5x8 plate, you only need about that much to cover, well, you don't even need that much to cover the plate. Now, this brayer I've made special because it was annoying me. It had a sway back to it. You know what a sway back is, like a horse that has a sway back? Well, this brayer had one, and it annoyed me, so I trimmed off the edges with my X-Acto knife, just cutting little bits in the edges. Plus, I wanted to use it for a specialty purpose, which was to make my jelly plates look like old walls. Okay, so you want to have a nice even layer on it, and you can look at, I have to roll this off a minute. You can look at your layer of paint by picking up your plexi and turning it over. And your gel plate will stay stuck to it, so you won't have any problem with that just falling right off if you don't have all those air bubbles in it, and if you've gotten it down there evenly. And you can see we have it pretty even. There's a little bit of air bubble at this edge, but that's no big deal. Okay, so you can see that it has, I mean, you can't see my hand through it. You can see the shadow of my hand on it, but you can't really, unless I stick my finger on it. But you really can't see my hand through it or something. Some of your paints will be opaque. Some of them will be transparent. And some of them will be semi-transparent, or semi-opaque, I think is what they call it. This one is semi-opaque. Let's see if I have one. The newer ones tell you, I think. Because, see, I've had mine for ages, so I'm not sure. Sorry about hitting the thing there. This one's mixed, so it doesn't count, but it was transparent paint to start with. But depending on how your paint, what your paint is like, then you will get different looks on your print. If you want to do a solid color, then you can just roll it out like that, a nice thin, even roll. And then you can put your paper down and you smooth that down evenly. And if you hadn't let it sit there for too long and dry on you, then you're ready to pull that up and you've got a nice print. Now we did miss just a little bit, and that's probably because I had a little bit of paint still on the jelly plate. But that's what a basic print looks like. Now, if we want to do something more than that, let's put a little more of this out here. And let's say that we want to use a stamp in it. Now, you can go buy a rubber stamp, or you can just make your own out of any kind of thing you have around your house. Like I got I think it's a mocha frappe at McDonald's the other day. Not the other day, before this COVID crap all started. Sorry, I say crap. And it came with a lid that looked like this. Well, it didn't have the paint on it when I got the stuff. But you can use virtually anything to make a stamp in your on your plate. And you just push down a little bit, and you can actually, you could stamp this off somewhere so that it wasn't, getting all orange and stuff. Okay. So stamps work because they pick up the paint, and then when you print it, you're going to have little holes there where that paint was picked up. Now, if you put your paper down and you don't hold it there for a length of time, put it down really fast, go over it once with your hand, twice with your hand, and pick it up, you're going to have your print, plus you're going to have some stuff left on your plate. This is where it can get a lot of fun. When you have the stuff left on your plate, if you let that dry totally, then you can pick that up with another color, and when you pick it up with another color, you're going to have a two-color print. So we're going to dry that kind of with our handy-dandy fan. You should never use a heat tool on your plate, because the heat tool will dry it out, and or if you get it too hot, it will melt it. If your plate dries out, you can put water on it to help wet it. You can put baby oil on it, I've heard. I haven't put any baby oil on mine. I just run it under the sink because I have a utility sink. And, you can put baby oil on it. You can put, I think I'll use the white instead. Not this white, it's almost gone. How about this one over here? Sure. This one's a mixed one too. It was magnolia white, and I tried to remix it to magnolia white. I'm not sure that I was successful. I think it's kind of pinky, but it'll be all right. Way too much paint. I'm used to using my large plate, so I have too much. But if your plate gets too dry, then baby oil is supposed to be able to revitalize it. I have a squeaky brayer. I like it. It's like it's talking to me. Okay, so I'm taking this excess. Now, if you had another plate, you could put that on your other plate and use it to make another print. But I'm just rolling it off onto a piece of paper over here. And you can see where I rolled it off. And I use those too. I use these pieces of paper too. I roll it off on both sides, and then I'll make a journal out of it. This is some packing paper of some sort. It's brown packing paper, and I get some really interesting pieces of that occasionally. And now when you've put this extra layer of paint on there, then it will wet and stick to the other paint that was on there. Let's look at that real quick. And when we put our paper down to pick it up, then we want to kind of press a little bit harder than the first time. We want to give it a good press, and we want to go over the whole thing. And we want to wait a few seconds. Just keep going over it for a little while. And when you lift this up, then it will take most of the paint, the dried orange paint, and the white paint will come off of your plate. Oh, we had too much white. Okay, so we just use another piece to pick up the rest of that because it's still wet. It's supposed to pick it all up, but if you have too much paint, you have to have a nice thin layer of your white paint. But if you make a mistake, like I just did, and you do too much, then you have 2 prints for the price of 1. And if you don't like this print, all you do is the next time that you have your gel plate going, print over the top of it after it's dry. You get some interesting things that way too. Okay, now look at your gel plate. Almost totally clean. It's got little bits of orange here, little bits of orange here, and so on. And there's your print. Now, we did stamping. What else can we do? Well, you can also do stenciling. And usually, let's see if I have a stencil here close by. Oh, I want to go through. Oh, here's one. Look at that. This one's called a badass stencil because it's pretty weird. And you can lay your stencil down and then put your paint on it. Come on, paint. And then, like any stencil, you can put your paint through the stencil. And what's nice about the gel plate is the stencil sticks to it pretty easily. So now we've covered the stencil and the plate with our orange. And just in case we have orange that will come off of that stencil, we're going to pick that up and put it down on this other piece of paper. And this paint here is from me rubbing it. Otherwise it wouldn't have done that. Ooh, come on, you don't. Little tiny pieces on this. Did you see that? Okay, and we have 1 print from that. And then we need to roll this off, so I'll go over here and do that. And then we would normally wait for this to dry, but I'm impatient, so what I do is to kind of blot it with a piece of paper. And you're going to ask me, what kind of paper can I use? Well, the paper that I use is called Finch Fine, and it's a commercial grade paper that they actually make books and things out of, or advertisements or whatever out of. And see, that took off most of it, but I didn't put it down there and rub on it for a lot, or it would have taken all of it. So I've still got a little bit down there. So when I put something over the top of that, then I will get a second print with it. And we're going to use, I think we'll use this pretty yellow. Seem to be having issues tonight with my throat. Put too much again. You want to roll lightly. You don't want to put your brayer down and like really scrub it into the plate, because if you do that, then you will probably take off the paint that's on there rather than put down the paint that you're trying to put down on it. Okay. Now, when you do your stenciling, we did that stencil and it's on there. Another thing you can do is to lay your stencil over that. And let's say that we use this end this time. And then we can get a piece of paper. And where's that one that we, oh, here it is. This is the one that we did at the very beginning when we just did the plain paper. We can put that over the top of it. And then we're picking up what's in the stencil. And I had a lot of paint on there, so I got a lot of haloing. See how it halos around there? And there's your stencil printed. Then on this side, we can take this part and we can put that down and get a print from that. And most people don't clean their stencils. I sometimes do and sometimes I don't, because if you let it build up a whole lot, you can have the stencil transfer the paint onto your stuff occasionally. Okay, and now we have an interesting print here to pick up. You can look at it from the other side. It's not that exciting. But if we were to let that dry, which we're not going to do because it takes forever, but if you let it dry in between times and then do a pickup print, remember what a pickup print is? That's when the paint is dry on there and then you put the wet paint on and you just put a nice even thin coat and then you lay your paper down and pick everything up. That's a pickup print or a cleanup print. I'm going to take a little bit of this off. And then I'm going to do, and that's interesting too. It almost looks like a road map or something. And then I'm going to do, when it dries, I'm going to do the pickup print. You like my fan? Isn't that pretty? I got that at Dollar Tree. It's a whole $1. Wow. To find out if it's dry, you can use your finger test. If you've got a clean finger. Oops, there's one. See, that one's dry. There is a little bit that's wet right there, though, so we'll wait a few minutes. I do have some other videos that show specific types of things that I've done with the stencils and so on. And so you can check those out. I did one that looked like stained glass, I thought, and one that looked like fireworks by using a Tupperware lid. You can use all kinds of things as your stamps and as your stencils. And I do cut some of my own stencils. I do make some of my own stamps. Here's a lid of some sort, and I cut out some fun foam and glued it on with Fabrifix and made a spiral as a stamp. And when you stamp into something that's a little bit dry, then it can remove the paint and you can get a different look to it. Come on, you. There, it's removed it. Okay, so we'll do a green. We've got an orange and a yellow. So let's do this green right here. This one's transparent, so it will be a different kind of thing. I don't know if I shook that or not. These are old paints. I've had them for, well, I can't tell you how many years I've had them, but a long time. And so some of them have little blobs in them and everything. If they have little blobs in them, then you should definitely take the blob off of your, like, see right there's one. You should take it off your plate and throw it away. Paper towel or a baby wipe works really well for that. To wipe your finger on, don't put it on the thing. Okay, so when we get our print done, and I am going to remove some of this paint. And see, I've got too much paint on. So if you have too much paint on, you can subtract some of it by rolling your brayer on to something else and coming back and picking up the amount of paint, the extra amount of paint. And if you want to know how much you should have, what you should have is enough to have it wet still. The paint is still wet, but you can see your design through it. And you can see on this, you've just about got the right amount of paint. You can see the little spiral and some of the other designs through it. Okay, let's get this piece of paper. Come here, paper. And so to do a pickup print, we're going to put it down, press down a little bit hard. Make sure you go over the whole thing, the edges and everything. Oh, we were talking about paper too. Any paper will work. And there we picked up most of it, but not quite all of it. But you can see you can get a very interesting print. Let's see if the rest of that will come up. You can use deli paper, you can use vellum. I wouldn't use vellum, I don't like vellum myself, but deli paper works, and tracing paper works, and onion skin works. And if you used, say, a watercolor paper, then the texture of the watercolor paper would make a texture on your plate as well. And that's a ghost print from the things that were left over. You can see that spiral still. Okay, when you're finished with your plate for the night, you want to close it up. In other words, you want to put the stuff back on top of it. Now, you can leave it dirty like this, and there's no problem with that. You can just put your plastics, and you can see that some of this plastic has been put on it when it's dirty, because it's not totally clear. Let me get a piece of paper so you can see that. See, it's got some colors on it still and so on. So it's not totally clear because it has been put on when it was still dirty. But if you want to clean it, I just take it to the sink and run it under warm water and wipe it off. You can also use like a spray bottle, and you can use you want to use like a Bounty paper towel, because Bounty paper towels are good at not having lint. And you can see that I have just washed this baby off. But when you're ready to put it to bed, or ready to be done with it, I'm doing this quickly in the video. Whoops, come on, get all this stuff off there. Okay, you're going to put your plastic on, and just like you did when you laid it down onto your plexi, you want to keep the air bubbles from being in there, because if you put it to bed with air bubbles in there, then the next day when you get up, you're going to have, see that air bubble there? Can you see that one? Yeah. You're going to have a little divot in your plate there. It's going to push that, the air itself will push that down into your gel plate. So you want to roll this to the edge like that, and kind of do like that. They suggest that the manufacturers suggest that you store it horizontally, but you have to remember not to put anything on it, because if you put anything on top of it, obviously that can make indentations in your plate as well. You don't want indentations in your plate, because if you have indentations in your plate, when you're rolling paint onto it, you're not going to get those spots. Okay, so now I have it without any air bubbles. There are some teeny tiny ones here. Don't think you really worry about teeny tiny ones, but I do. Okay. And when you have it with no teeny tiny air bubbles, I usually just stand mine up like that, lean it against something, and it works fine. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. Subscribe, leave a comment, do a thumbs up, all that good stuff. Check out my other videos on gel printing, and I'll try to do another tutorial tomorrow to give you some other ideas on what you can do with them. Good night now. Thanks for watching. Bye.